go. Now that's got some gas in the carburetor. Whenever you start it, it'll fire right up.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Throttle open. 18 inch. Master we got on. Strobe lights are on. I already checked.
Yeah. Prop area clear.
And start it up.
Avionics on.
Alternator on. Those two both need to come on.
Okay. Alright, before taxi lights, we don't have taxi lights. Radios. 118.2. Which one's the radio? Top one, right?
Yeah, the top one is COM 1.
Okay.
And the bottom one is COM 2. The last person was talking on COM 2, which is the bottom one. 118.2.
Oh, okay.
Yep, guy went to Fort Smith last night and came back.
Okay.
But you can talk on one and listen on one. Right now it's on departure. Yep, set on 118.2. Put it in active, that's right.
Okay.
So now we're talking and listening on one. And I put 124.67 in the bottom one.
Okay.
124.675.
That's the AWAS.
Uh-huh. Pull it out. Yeah, there you go. And now we're going to listen to 2.
0 Celsius. Altimeter 3,0,0,5 inches of mercury. Remarks. Density altitude 3,1,0,0.
Yep.
Springdale Municipal Airport. Automated weather observation 115 Niner Zulu. Wind 180 at 4 knots. Visibility more than 10. Sky condition clear below 12,000. Temperature 2.
There's some clouds
Celsius.
up there. Yeah, they just haven't got here yet.
0 Celsius. Altimeter 3,0,0,5.
Okay. And if you want to, you could do the run up here. There's no wind, but if there is a little bit coming from the south, even if it's coming from the north, it wouldn't be hard or anything to do the run up right here if you wanted to.
Okay.
Yeah, you just don't want to do it with anybody behind you in case you throw a rock or something.
Yep. Alright, so let's see. That's the before takeoff.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So we don't have park and brake, but just hold the brakes.
Right.
Seatbelts.
Yep.
All the way.
Okay.
Alright. Cabin doors locked.
Yep.
Windows are still open, that's alright.
Yeah, you can leave it.
Fuel selectors both.
Yes.
Elevator trim set for takeoff.
It's actually up a little bit, yeah, like right about here where that little line is.
Yeah.
Yeah, somewhere between there and that red box is about normal, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, that looks good.
Fuel quantity, we just filled it up.
If you can look up here also, it's full.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
And if you had to, you could stick that little thistle tube in there and measure it. Yep.
Okay.
If you want to know exactly, you look in there and measure it with that tube.
Okay. Mix is rich.
Yep.
And throttle 1700.
All right, we're going to run it up to 1700, holding the brakes. Check the magnetos. One click to the left. You'll notice it drops about 100 sometimes, or at least 50. Then back to both. And then 2 clicks to the left. Check, it drops about the same. Back to both.
Okay.
Pull the carburetor heat out right next to the throttle. You'll notice it drops in RPM because it's getting a different air source that's hotter. Push it back in. You notice it goes back up. Then pull it out to idle and make sure it doesn't die. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, and of course check the amp meter. You can see if everything's working right. The amp meter is not showing a discharge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. So suction is good.
Yeah, we don't even use the suction gauge anymore. That's that Venturi Venturi vacuum on the outside of the airplane. Now we're using the electric gyroscope.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
All right.
They used to. You'd check that. That was one of the things you would check the suction gauge to make sure it was working before you got ready to taxi. Yeah, but not anymore. It's electric.
Okay.
Yeah, we could put that in there. Not necessary or backup. Yep, because it's part of this backup. Yep.
Cool.
All right.
Let's see. Flaps are up. Lights. So we're good so far.
Yep.
Brakes. We'll let go.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
So we're gonna pull up to the taxiway and then call tower.
Yep. You can call them when you get closer to the taxiway. You could call them from here. You may or may not be heard, though. There's some dead spots because of the hangars. Sometimes if you can see the tower, he can hear you probably. Some places where you can't see the tower and he may not be able to hear you over here, I know.
We're doing an eastbound departure.
Yep, you just
practice area.
Yep, Springdale Tower. This is Cessna 6487 Bravo at the T hangars, ready to taxi. And we have the weather for eastern departure.
Okay.
Yep. You can call him from here.
All right. Springdale Tower, Skyhawk 6487 Bravo at the T hangars with the weather for an eastbound departure.
6487 Bravo, Springdale Tower, thank you for the weather, runway 18, taxi via Alpha.
Runway 18, taxi via Alpha 87 Bravo.
The only thing you didn't say was ready to taxi. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes they get hung up on that. There's one guy, he's not here. He has COVID, or he had COVID. I hope he's still alive. He hadn't been here for a couple of weeks. Last time I heard him, he sounded sicker than a dog. It was like 2 weeks ago. Yeah. Saturday and Sunday he worked, and he sounded worse Sunday. And then Monday, this new guy showed up and started covering for him. He would not let you taxi unless you said you were ready to taxi. He would say, okay, you know, he just listened to you. Say, I'm at the T hangars. I've got the weather for eastern departures. Okay. You called him back. Okay, I'm ready to taxi. All right, yeah, you're clear to taxi to 18 via Alpha. He wouldn't let you go until you said it. He was a stickler for that. I remember. Yeah. So the most important thing is I'm ready to taxi.
Ready to taxi.
Yeah. Some people say I'm looking to taxi. Well, okay, that works too. I just tell them I'm ready to taxi. And then down here at the end, you can say, I'm ready to go, you know, or I'm holding short. Same thing. People get excited. I'm ready to go.
So he didn't tell us to hold short runway 18, did he?
He should have. I think he did. I don't even hear it anymore because I'm so used to it. Yeah, that's standard. He always tells you to go to taxi to 18. If he doesn't say hold short, you should know it. Yeah. Yeah, he didn't say take off. He didn't say, you know, get on the runway. He just said taxi. That's all you can do. Yep. And then when you get down here, you say, I'm holding short. Some people will say, I'll be ready at the end. That way you don't even have to stop. You know, he'll clear you to go ahead and take on the runway, even though you're still taxiing. Yep. And then those are just different ways of saying the same thing. I'm holding short. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to take off.
So since we have a ground frequency, we just never really use it here?
This one, the radio's been dead for years. They just never fixed it. And they've got it notamed. There's a notice to airmen that says to everybody that looks at it, it says the ground control frequency is out.
Okay.
Out of service. And people will say, well, I tried you on ground. Yeah, well, if you'd looked on the notices to airmen, you'd notice that it's not working. Yeah. And people always tell on themselves, like, well, I tried you on ground. Yeah, it's not working. I love it. I just, you know all the ins and outs, and you can tell when people screw up. You know, that guy didn't notice there was a notice to airmen. You're supposed to read those before you take off every time you go somewhere. What's the notices to airmen? Is this out of service? There for a long time, the PAPI lights were out, or, you know, one thing that just doesn't work at the airport. So they put a notice there so all the airmen know it's out of service for a while. It may be a long time or it may be a short time.
So if you're not from here, you're looking at that right before you call 10 Mile or, Yeah,
if you're going to Springdale and you know it, you should have looked at the notices to airmen. Anytime you're doing a flight plan, and if you look at ForeFlight and you look at the airport, that's the first thing that pops up, notices to airmen. It'll tell you. Hey, they got some things that are different. There's an antenna or something, the light's not working on it. A lot of times they'll say that the light at the top of the antenna is not working, just so you'll know. That's a small one, you know, a lot of times until they get that light fixed. They'll have that notice to airmen. And Springdale Tower, 6487 Bravo is ready to go at 18.
6487 Bravo, Springdale Tower, proceed on course. Runway 18, clear for takeoff, the wind 1805, altimeter 3006.
Clear takeoff 1887 Bravo. Now, everything was standard. The only thing that wasn't standard was he gave you the altimeter, but he knew we already had the weather, so you don't have to read that back. A lot of times when they give you the altimeter setting, you can read it back to them, or you could just say copy that, or click your microphone twice means I heard you. Yep. Yeah, a lot of times you'll be on vinyl and they give you the last minute weather. You're like, winds are so and so. I'll just double click the microphone. I heard you. Yep. All right, whenever you're ready, give it full throttle. We'll do a normal takeoff. Yep, hold that right foot.
Oh, I gotta shut my window.
I got it.
There's 60.
Yep, rotate or pull back until you start to lift off on the ground and then you're flying. And then try and keep it over the center. Yeah, use those rudders if you want to keep it pointed down the runway. Good. And then climb out 75 to 85. That's great. Yeah, takeoff's the second hardest thing probably. Landing's got to be the hardest.
Yeah.
But takeoff's pretty easy. Anybody can take off. Got to have a little practice landing. And you got to match them up. For every takeoff, you got to have a landing. So, takeoffs are optional, but landing's mandatory. Like we're going to get a little rain today. They're calling for it. Yep, and then when you get to this Tyson Boulevard or Parkway and you're about 1,900 or 2,000 feet, we're going to turn left and fly a heading of 90 degrees or east. Keep climbing to 3,500 where we're going to do slow flight stalls and steep turns.
Okay.
Yep, we'll get out in the practice area and we'll do a clearing turn first, just looking for traffic. I don't think anybody else is out here yet.
I saw one leave at like 6:15, but he was going Conway.
Okay. I did see one guy taking off. Yeah, it looks a little cloudy.
This is A7 Bravo Squawk 1200, please.
A7 Bravo, copy.
Oh, forgot that.
Yeah, I didn't check the the squawk code on the transponder. The last guy that went down to Fort Smith must have got flight following coming back, and I didn't even look. I don't ever squawk hardly unless I'm going somewhere, maybe. Yeah. If I'm going to Little Rock or Class Charlie, if you're going to go to X and A, you got to get a squawk code. Charlie or Bravo, like Memphis or Little Rock. Yeah. Yep. Tulsa, got to get a squawk code if you're going to go into Tulsa. Yeah, there's some beautiful houses and subdivisions over there.
Yeah, my parents live right over there.
Yeah. That's got its own little lake. Couple big ponds. I think Jake Crabtree lives out there. Either there or further over. They own the Precision Auto Tune. They're on 71, across from Collier's and Walmart. That's where I bought the other 172, that blue one, blue and white one. Max Crabtree, they learned how to fly a couple years ago and bought that airplane, and I guess they just lost interest or they don't do it as much, so I bought it back. I got a friend of mine that works in Wichita at Airplanes, and it's spelled differently, Plains, and they do the STC conversions for the higher horsepower engines. Yeah. You could put a 180 horsepower engine on here and it flies a lot better. And then they also do all the instruments and everything. It's a lot of avionics. I'm going to get 2 of these G5s and put in that blue one. And a GPS, like the one that's in the 182 in the dash. There's a center stack in that other radio, in that other airplane where you can put the radios and everything. You don't have to reach across over there. There's a little bit of rain. I told you it was going to rain. Yeah. It's all right. Yeah, I get a little free airplane wash.
Yeah, that's not on the radar.
Now there it is. There's green.
Oh, okay.
Wherever it's green, and the dark green means it's raining harder. If it's yellow, it's even harder than that, and red, it's pouring down.
Okay.
Yeah. And if it's red, you could have some thunder in there, and you'll see a lightning strike symbol, and it starts counting how many times lightning has struck.
Okay.
That's pretty good to know. You know, oh yeah, it's popping over there. Don't go over there. Rain's okay. I don't like lightning, though. It'll go through your airplane. It could knock out something. Lightning.
Yeah. So VFR can fly in rain, just not cloud.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't go into where you can't see anything. If it's raining so hard that you can't see anything, that's the same as IFR.
Yeah.
But if the clouds are scattered or just a few of them, yeah, you could go right on through there. Only if it's broken or overcast. That's when there's no holes in the clouds or very few. Not a big enough hole that you could fly through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pilots are always saying, oh, I found a hole, you know. I flew through a hole in the clouds. We say that all the time. Oh, yeah. All right, when we get to 3,500, we're going to level off, pull the power back to 2,200 RPM, and then do your trim. That's it. If you adjust your power, you're going to have to readjust your trim, so do the power first. Yep, pull it back a little bit more, right at about 2,200. Good. Now you can adjust the trim. If you have to pull back on the wheel, you roll the wheel backwards a little bit to hold the pressure off so you can let go of it. If you're having to push forward, roll the wheel forward just a little bit. And you're aiming for that dot on the artificial horizon or that white line behind it. Looks like we're descending about 100 feet a minute. There you go. Anytime you see that magenta line, now we should be climbing. Yep. Climbing just a little bit. You get used to it.
Yeah.
Every time you adjust it, you catch something that you missed. You're like, oh, I don't have to adjust it that much. It's just a little bit. And if that's not enough, you adjust it a little bit more. If you adjust it too much, you take a little bit back out. Everything's kind of incremental. Yeah, adjust a little bit and see if that's enough. If that's not, then add a little bit more. Same way when you're banking. If you're turning, if it's not turning fast enough, you bank a little bit harder or take a little bit out.
I'm going to get it.
Yeah, it takes a little practice before you get good at that, leveling the airplane. And if it's straight and level, that's really the only time that you can trust your compass. Whenever you're turning left or right, if you're going north and south, the compass is off. Initially, if you're going north and south and you try to turn left, the compass goes the wrong way first, and then it tries to catch up so it goes faster. And then if you're going east and west, if you accelerate, the compass says you're going more north. If you decelerate, it says you're going more south than you really are. Those are some of the errors. And then in the gyroscope, you have gyroscopic precession. There's some errors in there also. It used to be a lot worse when we had to use the suction gauge, and you had a heading indicator and an attitude indicator. Those were always having to be reset, and you could only set it to the compass. You'd set the heading indicator to the compass when you're flying straight and level, unaccelerated. Yep. And you already know about lift, weight, thrust, and drag.
Yep.
Yeah. If you're accelerating, you've got to have more thrust than you have drag. If you're climbing, you've got to have more lift than you have weight. All those things have the relationship. If you're turning or if you're accelerating or slowing down, climbing and descending. Okay, so we've got slow flight now that you've got it trimmed out the way you want it and everything. And slow flight, what we're doing is we're slowing it down to just above the landing speed. If you're going to stall, they say the stall speed is 57 with no flaps.
Yep.
But we've got some stall kits, so it's really like 40-something. But we round it up to 60, and we add 5 for safety. So we're going to slow it down to 65 miles an hour.
Okay.
You're going to hold your altitude at 3,500 and keep your heading going east. We're going to slow it down to 65. Anytime you got your power below 2,000, you can put your carburetor heat in. Especially if the temperature is below 70 outside, they say that you could get carburetor ice. So that's why we use the carb heat.
Yep.
We're going to keep our airspeed at 65 to 70 and our altitude about 3,500. So you've got a trade-off between pitch and power. They say pitch for your airspeed. If you're going to speed up, you push the nose down. If you want to slow down, you pull the nose up a little bit. And if you want to climb, you use your power. Pitch for airspeed, power for altitude. If you got to climb, you got to add full power. If you're going to descend, you might want to pull a little bit of power out. So certainly if you want to keep it between 65 and 70, if you want to descend, you got to pull the power out or you're going to go over 70.
Yep.
Yeah, and you're going to pitch for it. So I would slow down to 70 or 65, and now I'm doing 500 feet per minute descent. Add a little bit of power. If I want to climb, I can still pitch. I'm pitching for 65 or 60 to 70. Yeah, you don't have anything to change except for your pitch. So you just pitch for the airspeed you want. If you go too fast, you pull up a little bit. If you go too slow, you push over on it. I'm going to pull it back out to about 1700 or so. And we're going to slow it back down to 65. Keep our heading on east. Oh, I missed it. I lost it. I should have been between 80 and 100, but I went over. I wasn't watching the heading. I was watching my airspeed. So if you need to speed up a little bit, you may have to add power or push the nose down. If you've got extra altitude, you can push the nose down a little bit, and you get your airspeed back a lot faster. Okay, it's your airplane. Go ahead and keep flying at 65 and a heading of east. Let's go back to the right a little bit. I started coming back to the left again. Yep, hold it on 90. Good. And you can have your hand on the power because you may have to add power a little bit here in a minute. We're going to turn to the left 90 degrees and we're going to turn to the right 90 degrees. And you're going to have to add a little bit of power when you're doing that because you lose lift when you're turning.
Oh, I see pitch for airspeed now. I feel it. Yeah. And
You're doing it. Yeah. If you want to speed up, you push forward a little bit. If you want to slow it down, pull back just a little bit. And it really slows down a lot when you pull back on it. It doesn't speed up right away, but it does. After a second, it'll speed up a lot faster by pushing forward on it. But you got to have the altitude to lose, or got to have a little bit of altitude if you want to do that. Yeah, that's it. And if we were to do it with flaps, we'd slow it down to 55. We just round that up to 50. That's your stall speed with the flaps in. So at 55, we would have the flaps in, and we'd be doing the same thing. And you can't turn very sharp because you don't have enough lift. Yeah. If you tried to bank really hard, you'd lose a bunch of altitude. So, all right, we're going to turn to the left heading of 0 or north. Okay. And it's just going to be a shallow turn. At this speed, you want to keep it at 65. So you may have to add a little bit of power if you start to lose altitude. Oh, you're doing fine, though. That looks good. Yeah, it's just going to be like a 10-degree bank angle. Now we're gaining a little bit of altitude, just a hair. Don't want to go over 3,600. You want to keep it 100 feet plus or minus if you start at 35, and 10 degrees plus or minus on your heading. Yep, we're going too fast, so pull some power out. And pull the nose up a little bit to slow it back down to 70. Yep. There you go.
Calling, you're talking to Springdale Tower. If you'd like to talk to Rogers, it's 119.37.
I'm sorry, just left Rogers airspace. I was looking for Springdale Tower. Cessna 97738. We're about 10 miles northeast inbound for landing, sir, with the weather.
7738, Springdale Tower, Roger. Thank you for the weather. Runway 18, clear to land.
Yeah.
Runway 18, clear to land. Cessna 97738.
Yeah, we're losing just a little bit, like 100 feet per minute or two. Yeah, there you go. And now you're going to lose a little bit of airspeed, so add some power to it when you pull the nose up. Yeah. You're going to lose a little bit of airspeed, and then if you're going to lose too much, you got to add a little bit of power to keep up with it. Yeah. And then let's turn back to the right 90 degrees. We'll go back to the east. Watch your altitude. We're losing a little bit, so add some more power and pull the nose up a little bit and start a little climb. We don't want to go below 3,400. Basically, you're learning how to scan that one instrument. Used to, we'd have to scan the whole six-pack of instruments, but now it's all right there in that one little area. Your heading, your altitude, and your airspeed, those are the big three. Yep. And if you wanted to, you could use a little bit of right rudder to step on the ball. When you turn into the left just a little bit, use a little bit of left rudder or right rudder if you turn to the right. You always use a little bit more right than you do left because of the left turning tendencies. You're right at the minimum of your altitude. There you go. Add a little bit of power. Yep, and there's your 90. Good deal. That's it. And if you wanted to, you could keep climbing to 3,500, or that could be the end of the maneuver. As long as you didn't go below 3,400, he'd say you passed.
Okay.
Yep.
So you have 100 on either side?
Yep.
Okay.
So if you start at 35, you go from 34 to 36. But you want to start correcting before you get right up to the edge. Yeah. Say when you get to 50, halfway, say I got to start correcting. Otherwise, I may get to the edge and I don't have anywhere else to go. If you wait till you get to the end, it's real easy to bust.
Yeah.
Right,
that was really close. Yeah.
Yep. So now we're going to slow it down to 55. I'm going to put in your 30 degrees of flaps. Yep. and you want to change your pitch. So level that, use your trim to level it out for straight and level at 55 miles an hour. May want to add just a little bit because we got more drag in now. We may need to add more power. Good. Yeah, that looks good. As soon as you get that adjusted and you feel comfortable and everything, we'll do a left turn and a right turn at 55 to 60. You may want to take a little bit of power out. Or if you start your turn, that'll slow you down a little bit too. By pulling up on it, you're going to lose a little bit of airspeed. It's a combination of pitch and power. But when you're flying in slope light, they say you're in the region of reverse command. Pitch for airspeed, power for altitude. You can break it down to those two simple statements.
Okay.
Normally it's a combination of both. Alright? Yep, you can turn to north whenever you want. Use a little bit of left rudder if you need it. Yep, that's a good 10-degree bank angle there. You're at that first tick mark.
Yep.
Good. That's all there is to it. And if you're coming into land, you know, we're not going to be turning left and right, but we're going to be flying at about 60 miles an hour when we're touching down. Same thing whenever you take off. Initially, you're doing 60 miles an hour. You don't have much lift. You just barely got enough to get off the ground. Yeah, good. And then back to the right, 90 degrees. Uh-huh. Got a guy doing a cross country today to Clarksville. He wants to go down there and go skydiving in the air coop. It's his air coop. I was like, okay, you might get wet. He's still thinking about it. He's doing his whether no or go or no go decision. I told him it'd be fine this morning, but coming back he might get wet. That's good, yeah. If you stop at 80, you still pass.
Okay.
Anywhere between 80 and 100, you pass. But if you start noticing that you're stopping at 79, just go ahead and turn a little bit more to get through it. Yeah, a lot of times they won't count off if you stop early and then continue. But if you overshoot it, you can't go back. You busted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or if you go under your altitude or above your altitude, they'll bust you. A lot of times they'll give you a second chance. They'll say, let's do that one again. Yep. Okay, and then at the end, you just give it full power, take the carburetor heat off, and take the flaps off 1 notch at a time.
Okay.
Give it full throttle, yeah. Carburetor heat off. As long as you're going over 60, push your nose down a little bit, speed up to 60, and then take off 1 notch of flaps. It'll speed up a little bit, take off another notch, and then that last notch. Yep, one more. That's it. They just say take it off 1 notch at a time, and as you're taking the flaps off, you want to pull back a little bit on it. Now you can pull your power back. You got plenty of airspeed. Good. 2200 is what we're looking for. Good. 2000 and 2200 is good. So that's slope light. Then you've got stalls, and there's 2 different stalls. There's power on stall, like you just took off, and then there's the power off stall, like you're getting ready to land with the flaps in.
Yep.
So we've got power in there. We'll call this a power on stall. It's only got to be 65 to 75% power, so 2200 RPM is good. We're going to pitch up to where it's 20 degrees of pitch up. There's a 10 there. There's a 20 up above there.
Yep.
If you want to, go ahead and pull back on it. We're going to keep it on about 90. You don't have to worry about the heading so much. But you want to get it up here on that 20 and pitch up to keep the wings level and the ball in the center. If you need a little bit of right rudder, use that right rudder. We're going to pitch up to 20 degrees, and you'll notice the airspeed coming down. The first thing you'll hear is that stall horn go off. You'll say that's the first indication.
Yep.
There it is. At 30 it went off.
Okay.
And then if you feel the buffeting of it, there it goes.
Okay.
Push it over, add full power. And if you had the carburetor heat out, which we would have at below 2,000 RPM on slope light, or with power off stall, we'd have that carburetor heat out. But now you're fine. Everything's back up to the normal, and you're not in the stall anymore. Pull the power back out,
okay.
Yeah, to 2,000 or 2,200. So that was the power on stall. You pitch up for 20, and you hear the stall horn go off and say that's the first indication. indication. And then when you feel the buffeting, you say that's the imminent stall warning.
Yeah.
Any further increase in pitch or bank, if I started turning, or decrease in power, and the plane could stall immediately.
Okay.
It could be pointing straight down at the ground, and you got to recover.
Okay, and recover is carpet in?
Off, full power, push your nose over.
Okay.
Once you get your airspeed back, you level back off again, and you maintain that. You don't go back into the stall again by doing the same thing that caused the first one.
Yeah.
Pulling the power out or pulling the nose up. We had the nose up so high.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next one is going to be pull the power back to 1700, like you're getting ready to land. Pull in the carburetor heat and 30 degrees of flaps, as long as you're under 100. Yep.
All right.
And as you're putting the flaps in, you push the nose down. Keep pulling them on, and then push your nose down and do one more. And that just keeps you, as you're putting the flaps in, I push the nose down a little bit as I put the flaps in. Yep. And now we're going to pull the nose up to 10 degrees pitch up.
Okay.
When you hear the stall horn go off, say that's the first indication. Just hold it there on the 10, keep the ball in the center, and the wings level. So this is what happens if you come in too slow. There's the first indication. Keep pulling up. Okay.
Now
Add
power.
more power. Yep. Take the carb heat off. Let it speed up to 60, and then take the flaps off one notch at a time. Yep. Okay. Take another one off, and then the last one. That's it. As you're taking them off, you pull back a little bit on it. And you'll get used to that after a while.
Okay.
So we just wanted you to feel what it felt like without you being the only person in the airplane.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and do a 180 and fly back towards Springdale a little bit. The last one is steep turns, and that's whenever we're going to bank over, all the way over to that little tick mark past the little ones and then a big one, and then halfway between the two big ones is 45.
Okay.
Over here is 45, over there is 45. Right now we're doing a shallow turn. If you're at that big tick mark, that's 30, and then we're going to go all the way over to 45. And that's as steep as you'll ever want to turn this airplane.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're out there in the practice area, or if you're getting ready to land or something, and you have to bank the airplane, remember, don't go over 45. You'll feel it. You'll go, oh man, that's too steep.
Yeah.
Most people hate doing it. Yeah. I've got a guy now who's getting ready to go take his check ride. We're going to go practice that again because that's the last thing he has to perfect before he goes and gets his license. Oh, Flash. He's an older guy. He must have got that nickname when he was younger. Flash. That's a good one. Yep, pull your power back. About 2,200 RPM. So whenever you're doing this, we're going to be doing about 100 miles an hour, not to exceed 116. Yep, and level off. You can use 3,500 again.
Okay.
And we're going to start off on the heading. Say, I'm going to start off on 270 and 3,500, and I'm going to end up on 270 and 3,500. Remind yourself, because people forget. They get halfway through the turn and go, oh man, what did I start on? And so tell yourself, or write it down. If you've got a scratch pad out there, you can write it down so you'll remember.
Okay.
Yep. I just say it to myself a couple of times. I'm going to start at 270. I'm going to end on 270. My altitude's 3,500. I'm going to end on 3,500. All of these maneuvers are at least 1,500 feet above the ground. I say 2,000. That's one of those questions on that pre-solo written.
Yeah.
Yep. You got to finish by having over 1,500 feet. Yeah. Yeah, when you're descending to an altitude, you go just a little bit above it and start rounding out because you'll still sink a little bit. But when you're climbing, you've got to go all the way up to your desired altitude. It won't keep climbing.
Yeah.
Yep. And some people even go 100 feet higher, and then they come down that 100 feet. That gives them a boost in speed coming down 100 feet, so they call it getting up on the step.
Okay.
Like a truck driver or something, you know, I'm getting extra speed going downhill.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, that feel good? Like you got it leveled?
Just about.
Okay.
Yep.
So we're going to go into a steep turn. We're going to go all the way over to 45 degrees,
Okay.
and we're going to go all the way around the circle, come back to the west again.
Okay.
Yep, whenever you're ready.
All right.
Yep.
So two.
Let's go to the left first.
Okay.
Yeah, let's always go to the left first.
All right.
That's easy to remember. and the airplane wants to turn left anyway, but you're going to use a little bit of left rudder because it's going to be a steep turn. Let's keep turning, and you got to pull back a little bit on it to get it into that. There's your steep turn.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I grab a handful of trim to hold the nose up. Otherwise, you're going to start losing altitude. I think we're climbing a little bit, so let the nose come down just a hair.
Okay.
There you go, right about there. Keep it on the line in the back or just a little bit above it. There's 30. There's your 45. Hold that until we get around 270. We're going to roll out like 20 degrees before we get to 270, though. At 290, we're going to start rolling out wings level. Right about there.
Okay.
There we go. We almost overshot it. And then we go back into the right.
Okay.
I'm going to give it a little bit more power and let our speed get back up there about 90 is what we want. So there's your 45 degrees. So we do one to the left and then one to the right. Trying to hold our altitude at 3,500 or right above that line in the background. That's about 40 degrees of bank angle. This time when we get around to 270, we're going to be on the high side. So we're going to start at 290. We're going to start rolling out wing level.
230, right? Or 250?
250. Yeah, 250. Yeah, 20 degrees before you get there.
I feel that, yeah.
Yeah, we're pulling a couple of G's now. At 45 degrees of bank angle, you're pulling like, we almost overshot it at 3,600. Oh, I did overshoot the heading. I was looking at my altitude because we're getting ready to overshoot it. But that's basically what you want to do.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can feel it. It's like 1.8 times your gravity. At the end of it, we're going to push the nose over and then take that trim back out.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, let's go back down to 3,500. We'll start it again. We're going to do one to the left and then one to the right.
172 descending for Rogers.
And then after a while of doing it, it gets easier. At first, you're all over the place. You know, you're up, you're down, you're left, you're right. But once you do it a few times, it gets easier. You just, if you wanted to, you can start out at 30 and then you creep your way up to 45 degrees of bank angle. Let's go back to 270 on the heading. Also left a little bit. I overshot it.
Tower, it's 97738. We're on the ramp with weather ready to taxi.
Yeah. There's 270.
Since 97738, Springdale Tower.
So you want your airspeed up around 100, not to exceed 116, your maneuvering speed or VA. Whenever you're ready, go ahead and start that left turn at 3,500. If you feel like you got the trim set, once you get into the bank angle, grab a handful of trim and that'll hold the nose up for you.
Okay, so a handful down.
Yeah,
okay.
Yep, grab a couple of those balls and roll them backwards.
You do that once you get into the angle?
Once I get the bank in there, I grab a handful of trim and then when I roll out wings level, I take it back out.
All right, and you're just going straight into 45, you're not easing it? Okay.
Nope, just go right into that 45 as fast as you can or as slow as you can. It doesn't matter how fast you get into it, just that you get there.
We got to get up to 100?
No, you're fine. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, 2,200 is good.
Okay.
We want to shoot for about 100 miles an hour, but not to exceed 116 up here where it says VA.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, what happens is you get into a spiral. People get tighter and tighter, and they go faster and faster.
Okay.
Yep. We'll watch. I always watch for that. I'll keep them from doing that.
All right, 270.
270. We're going to end on 270. Yep.
All right.
We're going around to the left, so the numbers are going to get smaller. We'll want to start rolling out when we get to 290. Pull back a little bit on it, or you're going to start losing your altitude. There you go. Keep that above the dot, that dot above the line.
Okay.
There you go. And now go in a little bit steeper. That's it. And you have to hold it from going over 45 and hold the nose up a little bit. You're going to lose altitude. There you go. Yeah, that's much better. That's pretty smooth right there. And that's about a 35, 40 degree bank angle. There's your 45. And notice how your nose is pointing down now, so you got to pull up a little bit. Yeah, if you keep banking and you pull back, you're going to tighten that spiral up. There you go. Hey, that was good. Now one to the right whenever you're ready.
All right, I need some time for that.
Okay.
All right, now 45 here.
Yep. That's good. Yeah, you did that one good. It was a little bit under 45, but you noticed a couple of things and corrected along the way, so I know you're learning. You're still putting together those pieces of the puzzle.
That's 45 right now?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. And you're losing a little bit of altitude. Yeah. There you go. Now you've got it back. You're climbing, or you will be climbing. Yep. Yep. Ascending again. Coming up on 270. Yep. That's it. and then level off at 3,500. Take the trim back out. Good.
Overshot that a little bit, but...
It's okay, though. Yeah, that was much better. All right, let's head back to the airport. Let's see, 270. See if you can find the ridge over there. I think it's straight ahead there.
Yeah.
I think I see it.
Yeah.
And then whenever you get to the War Eagle Mill, or if you've got it here, you can say 10 miles east whenever we're inbound.
Okay.
We'll do a couple of landings. Yeah, I think we'll have time to do a couple. Yeah, there's a little bit of drizzle out here. It looks like it may not even be touching the ground. Sometimes you can see the rain falling and it doesn't even reach the ground. It just re-evaporates again. So those are the performance maneuvers, slow flight, stalls, and steep turns. And then we can discuss the emergency procedures on the checklist. If something happens, you'll have to adjust or correct for an engine fire where you dive to put it out. You dive for 120 miles an hour and hope that it blows the fire out. If that doesn't work, if you've still got altitude, you go into a steep turn in that dive and it pulls air up underneath the engine where the carburetor is and puts the fire out. So you do a spiraling descent. If you had a radio fire or electronics fire behind the dash, you just turn the master off and hopefully that'll shut the short off and stop it from heating up and causing the fire. Then you just got to worry about the fire going out. You can open the window, and let the smoke out, or shut the vent off for the cabin so you don't get more smoke.
How do you shut the vents off?
There's a vent right here. These two.
Cabin
one of them is
okay.
air, and then the other one is for heat if you want the heater on.
Okay.
Yeah. And that draws air from over the coupler or where the exhaust is, so it's hot. Then the last one is the engine quits, and then they have you try to troubleshoot it. Is it because the magnetos are bad or one of the magnetos is bad? You check the magnetos, you turn it to the left, and if it starts running smooth again, or it starts running, that was the problem.
Yeah.
If you turn it to the left and nothing happens, you turn it to the right. Maybe the right magneto's good, and it may start up or whatever, and then you keep going.
Okay.
If it's because your fuel tank's on the wrong one and that one's empty, you switch the fuel tank over to the one that's got fuel in it, or put it on both.
So if the power goes out, engine goes out, are you just trying to glide into one of these fields?
Well, I use the acronym, or just remember the alphabet, A, B, C, D, E. Airspeed, your best glide is 80. So when the engine quits, you pitch for 80 miles an hour. You'll glide further at 80 than you will any other airspeed. You pick the best place to land. You say, I'm going to land over in that field, or this field right here. I'm going to circle down to it.
Okay.
And then you pull out the checklist, C. You go through the checklist. It says, okay, the engine failure during flight. Try to restart. You pitch for 80, switch to fuel tanks, mixture rich. Maybe you had it starved for fuel. Carburetor heat on. Maybe you had carburetor ice, or you do have carburetor ice, so you're trying to eliminate that by pulling the carburetor heat on. It may take a couple of minutes to melt. If you've got carburetor ice, you may have to land anyway. It may not melt by the time you get down there.
Okay.
Carburetor heat. Engine gauges. If you've got one it's got no oil pressure, or the temperature is over there in the red, my engine's overheated, and it's probably seized up, maybe. That's what you're looking for. Primer in and locked. You could have a vacuum or something in there. If that primer was out and you're flying along, you could get a little suction in there. Transponder 7700. That's your mayday, mayday, mayday. Now you're declaring the emergency. We're into the D.
Yep.
Airspeed, best place to land, checklist, declare the emergency. If you've got electricity, this 7700 transponder glows on their radar. They go, there's somebody declaring an emergency. Yeah. You call on the radio. If you're talking to Springdale even out here, you say, hey, Springdale, this is 6487 Bravo. I'm 15 miles to the east, and I've lost an engine. I'm going down.
Yeah.
they'll send somebody out here to pick you up and find you.
And how much time do you have? Like, if let's say we're to go out right now, how many minutes?
A couple minutes.
Really? Okay.
2 minutes at the most.
Okay.
Yeah, you're going to glide until you set up for a landing, and you get about 1.5 miles for every 1,000 feet above the ground. You could glide 1.5 miles in this airplane.
Okay.
Some of them it's only 1 mile. Some of them are even less than that, you know. But most of the Cherokees and everything's over 1 mile.
Gotcha.
Yep. So you
the higher you are, the better.
Yeah. If you had 5,000 feet, you could glide for 7.5 miles. I mean, you could go a long way.
Okay.
Yep. Every 1,000 feet, you could go another mile or 1.5 miles forward. So at this point, we've got to land somewhere, you know, within 1 mile or 2 up here.
Yeah.
And you just start flying towards it, and you start checking out what's wrong with the airplane. If you can't get it started again, you got to land with no power.
Yeah.
And you just set up for it like you would land at the airport. Hopefully, as long as you get the wheels on the ground, you'll walk away. The airplane's built to crumple like an accordion and protect the cockpit. If you run into a tree or a barn or something, it'll start crumpling up and protect us. But you want to make sure you open the doors, because the door will get shut.
Okay.
You'll get crammed shut where you can't open it.
Yeah.
I saw a fire. It was a...
So like that road right there would be a perfect. I would just circle into that road.
Yeah. If there was no cars on there, you could land on the road.
Okay.
I would plan on landing on the grass, but if there was no cars, you can land on the road.
Okay.
Or land in front of the cars. Don't land behind them. They always freak out when they see an airplane in the rearview mirror and hit their brakes. And you should be going faster than them anyway. So try and pass them, land in front of them. That way you don't have to worry about them locking up their brakes. So, yeah, E is the last one. Execute the landing. You just keep flying like you're going to land. You may be circling down, and then that last lap, you go up and you set up for the final.
Yeah. And you just get, you're just so used to that at that point that
we'll do it at the airport.
Yeah,
we'll do it at the airport. You'll get used to landing.
Okay.
738, contact Drake Tower on 128.
And even though it's a grass field out here, we treat the runway like it's grass. We'll say, okay, we're going to pretend like this is a grass field.
Yeah.
You just hold the nose up as long as you can. That way, if it does come down, it doesn't get stuck in the mud and you flip over.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't get wrapped around the long grass. Long grass wraps around there like a rope and just breaks you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to touch down as slow as you can and then let that nose wheel come down last. That's all there is to it for a grass field. And when you take off, we use 10 degrees of flaps. That gets you up out of the grass sooner, and you accelerate in ground effect to 60, and then take off that notch of flaps to climb out normally.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah, engine fire in flight. They turn the fuel selector off, the master off, and then they established at 120 miles an hour just to put the fire out. They shut off the mixture and everything, so they don't want any more fuel going to the engine.
Yep.
That's how you get the fire to go out if you can. And then land, do the emergency landing without power. It says proceed to that. That's the next step. So yeah, you got to practice those. You'll get pretty familiar with it. I won't say that it won't put you in shock like the first time you hear somebody say, okay, you just lost your engine.
Yeah.
It'll happen though when you go up there and take your practical exam, like when you get your license that day. The guy will pull your power right there next to the airport and make you land with no power.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a commercial maneuver called a power off 180. But he does it for private pilots. Does a couple of things like that that are harder. But he's a really easier examiner. He's pretty nice. He'll let you do it again. Some of them, if they wanted to, they could bust you for anything. Any little thing, they'll go, oh, you busted. It's easy to bust people, you know. You went over a foot. One foot, you know. Or you went under a foot. You missed your heading by 1 degree. You actually went over 11, but, you know, it just takes that one extra one. Yep, that's the ridge.
Yep.
And if you wanted to call him up here, we're about 10 miles out, right? What are you showing there?
About 12, yeah.
Where you get 12? Oh, using the rings?
Yeah,
okay. You can also put it down here if you wanted to. One of the things, you don't need the accuracy thing if you want to put down here, what is it, distance to next. There you go. And if you had Springdale put in here, it would tell you the heading and everything to Springdale. KASG. Direct to. Yeah, 13.
Okay.
Yeah, when you get up here and you see the mill, the War Eagle Mill, that's 10.
Okay.
I think that's it straight ahead, looks like.
That's the river, yeah?
Yeah. I don't know if it's the mill or not. It could be. Yep. And so it's recommended you call the towered airports 10 miles out, but you have to be talking to them within 5 miles. If you go to a non-towered airport, they call it common traffic advisory frequency. You don't even have to talk to them, but I always call them up when I'm 5 miles out, when I enter into the pattern, and when I'm getting ready to land, or when I'm getting ready to take off. I just say, Berryville traffic, or Carroll County traffic, Cessna 6487 Bravo is 5 miles to the west, inbound landing runway 25. Or I'm left downwind for runway 25, or I'm landing runway 25, I'm on final. And then when I get ready to take off, I'll say I'm taking off 25, departing to the west or whatever.
Yeah.
And if there's anybody else in the area, they should call in if they hear you. If I hear somebody else that's in the pattern, I'll tell them, I'll say, hey, I'm 5 miles to the west, I'm inbound for landing also.
Yeah.
And that way they'll know I'm coming. If they want to do a touch and go or something, they'll be looking for me when they take back off again.
Yep.
You want to make sure you communicate. See and avoid if you can. Try and look for him. Is how I see him. I'm not going to run into him, you know.
Yep.
That's it. Everybody's responsible. Yep. And if you want to listen to the weather again,
0.
you just gave us a density altitude.
Springdale Municipal Airport. Automated weather observation 124 Niner Zulu. Wind 20 at 6 knots.
Pick up a little bit.
More than 10. Sky condition clear below 12,000. Temperature 27 Celsius. Dew point 21 Celsius. Altimeter 30. 6 inches of mercury. Remarks. Velocity altitude 3.
So it changed by 10 feet.
Yep.
Each inch of mercury is 1,000 feet. There it is. There's the mill. So now we're about 10 miles.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you mean to call them?
I called up to them. You're 10 miles to the east at 3,000 feet, inbound with the weather.
Okay. Springdale Tower, Skyhawk 6487 Bravo, 10 miles to the east, inbound with weather.
Okay.
6487 Bravo, Springdale Tower, runway 18. Clear to land. Thank you for the weather.
Good land 18.
Clear to land 18. 87 Bravo.
Good. That's it.
Alright.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll pick up on these landmarks, you know, like there's the War Eagle, that camping place or whatever, the camp for kids.
But he said clear to land already. So
Yeah,
there's
nobody between us and there, but if somebody were to take off like a jet or something from Rogers and go to Springdale, he'd get cleared to land first.
Yeah.
Yep. If somebody just popped up out of X and A or coming through that area, he might clear them to land. Or if somebody's ready to taxi, he may clear them to take off before we get there. Yeah.
So when he does that, we don't need to go into the pattern, we just go straight into final?
That's it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, a lot of times they'll say enter on the base.
Yep.
So here's your runway, here's your base. All you got to do is make a left turn to final. If you're up here, they'll say you're cleared to land straight in. Even over here, they'll say straight in. It may be a 45-degree turn, but as long as it's not 90, they won't say enter on the base.
Skyhawk.
There's one.
715 Golf on the ramp with
Yep.
weather. Like
That's ARH.
Practice area, and we are ready to taxi.
7715 Golf, Springdale Tower, runway 18, taxi via Alpha.
Nope.
Taxi Alpha to 1815 Golf.
You can tell the new people on the radio. It takes a while to get used to it. But you could write out a 3x5 index card with everything that you say and just leave blanks for the name of the airport or the name of the runway or whatever, you know, runway 18 or, yeah. It's the same thing, whether you're taxiing here or you're taxiing down in Fort Smith, or you're taking off here or you're taking off Fort Smith. Say, I'm ready to taxi, I'm ready to take off.
Yeah.
I'm 10 miles to the east.
And if you get that weather first, you should be able to kind of figure out which way you're going to be landing.
You expect, which way. You know exactly. You're going to land into the wind. Unless it's variable and it changes a lot, it's always going to be into the wind or most likely where the wind's coming from. It may be mostly crosswind, but if there's a little bit of headwind, that's the way you'll land. And if you look on ForeFlight, you'll see that you look at the airports down here, you can look at the runway. It'll tell you which one's favored. Let's see, let's go to Springdale, KASG. Runway. It's the green one, best wind, runway 18. Yep, it tells you what the headwind is. 2 knots headwind, 8 knots headwind, 2 knots crosswind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so when I'm practicing with ATC on the simulator, there's always an alphabet for the weather. This one doesn't have that, right?
Right, yeah. They'll say, notify us that you have information Sierra.
Yeah.
Fayetteville does it, XNA does it, but Springdale does it. You just say, I've got the local weather.
Okay.
Or some people say, I've got the 1 minute weather. I would just say, I've got the weather. I used to say, I've got the numbers. That was smart, yeah. I was trying to be cute. I've got the numbers. That means I copied the weather down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's going to decide not to go to Clarksville today. This will be his first solo cross-country. Austin. Yep. This is Hickory Creek. That's War Eagle Marina. There's Lowell straight ahead. Rogers Airport over to the right, way over there. You can see the airport. It's the last thing out of town. And then there's our airport. I can see those big blue hangars. It's ATCO Rubber Company behind the tower. At nighttime, and sometimes during the daytime, you'll see the white and green strobe on top of the tower. It rotates like a beacon. You'll see a white flash and then a green flash. That's how you look for them at night.
So at night, are the runway lights you have to control with the radio?
Yeah, click it 7 times.
Okay.
It comes on for 15 minutes.
Okay.
You can click it again and it restarts the counter.
Is that from 10 miles too, or?
Anyway, you can do it 50 miles out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, as long as it can read you. If you're talking, if you can hear the clicks, it'll turn the lights on. And that's another way of looking for the airport. Turn the lights on. Makes it easier to see. I usually don't see this one until I'm this close. You got to be almost right on top of it because of the hills and the trees. Yeah, he's going to stay in the pattern or he's not going to go. Good. That's a good decision making. A good decision that he made not to go to Clarksville because it could be raining when he comes back and he may have to stay down there all day or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to wait for the weather to clear off. Or just reschedule. Say, I'm going to do it tomorrow. Yep. Look at how blue that water is in that quarry. That's a pretty water. I don't know if it's what kind of minerals are in there to make it that blue. And there's Van Zant's Orchard. Yep. Went to school with some of them. Used to see one of them out at the lake all the time, drinking and wakeboarding behind a Moomba boat. I just remember that because I see them out there like every day. They're always drunk, skiing and wakeboarding. I'd hang out with them once in a while, but they were too hard partying for me. Yep, and you're going down to 2400. If you want to, you can go ahead and start your descent all the way down to the runway and start looking for those lights. We're going to pull the power back to 1700.
Okay.
Pull the carburetor heat out. Yep. And then you can pitch up a little bit. We don't need to descend this fast, like about 500 feet per minute is normal. There you go. About 500 feet, about halfway in that magenta there. Yep. A little bit of trim if you want to. You could trim it for the descent, or you could trim it for straight and level. A little bit of power back there. And you're doing it. It's all you. Have one hand on the throttle and one on the yoke.
Okay.
Because you're always going to have to make a little bit of adjustments when you're coming down. If you're coming down too fast, take a little bit of power out. If you're wanting to hold your altitude, add a little bit of power. Sometimes waiting to capture the white lights if you're trying to climb a little bit or hold your altitude.
006.
That guy's down there ready to take off, and we're on a long final, about a 3-mile final. But we're cleared to land, so we'll keep going. You don't have to say anything after he clears you to land.
Okay.
Looks like I see 1 red and 3 white, so we're just a little bit high, but we're still on the glide slope. Yeah, if you want to come down a little bit faster than 500 feet, you'll see 2 red.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. That's it. I just pushed the nose over if you want to descend a little bit faster. Yep.
There it is.
There you go. Yep. And then line straight up on it, just like you're looking down a pull cue or you're looking down the scope of your rifle.
7715 Golf is ready for takeoff, runway 18.
Cessna 7715 Golf, Springdale Tower, Roger. Traffic's on a 2-mile final, runway 18, clear for takeoff, and left turn out approved.
No delay.
15 Golf is cleared for takeoff, 18, and a left turnout.
Yep.
He's got to get going.
Yeah, he'll make it. But if he sits there for very long and dilly-dallies around, they can cancel it. So your takeoff is canceled.
Cessna 7 Bravo, traffic's departing prior to...
I need to pull...
Yeah, slow down a little bit.
2006, altimeter 3006.
7 Bravo. Yep, keep it under 100.
All right,
Yep.
first.
Yeah, when you put those flaps in, it'll help slow you down also. You can go ahead and put in the rest of it. As you're putting in the flaps, you want to push the nose down just a little bit. It changes the attitude of the airplane. It changes the lift points. You'll notice the center of gravity is like right underneath our seats. It's right underneath the wings where the fuel is and everything. That's our center of gravity. Good. Yeah, and landing lights. So we go through our checklist. Seatbelts, gas on both, mixture rich, carburetor heat on, landing lights on,
Yep.
flaps and power as desired.
Yep.
Good, you're looking good. Yeah, next time, that's what we're going to do. I don't think we're going to have time for another one. This will be our only full stop, or our only landing today. But next time, we're just going to stay in the pattern again until you solo.
Okay.
We may stay in it for 2 or 3 hours, but at least probably an hour or 2 of nothing but takeoffs and landings. And then when you're ready to solo, I'll go around with you 3 times, and then I'll get out and I'll watch you go around 3 times.
Okay.
That's how you solo.
Contact departure.
Good. Yeah, keep your airspeed up to 70 until you get to the runway. Line up in the center if you can. Yep, start pulling the power all the way out, and you're going to glide in that last little bit. Use that left rudder to line you up down the runway, whether you land on the left, right, or the middle. That's it. Just hold it there. Good. That was a good one.
Right.
Yeah, so you use the nose wheel to steer where you're going straight down the runway, and you use the ailerons to try to position yourself over the center when you come down. And then the elevator, you're just playing with it, just keeping the airspeed above a stall.
Bravo, taxi to park with me. Good morning.
Takes with you. Good morning. 87 Bravo. Yeah. Yep, and then you steer it back to the hangar. The Indy 500. Yep. Once you cross the railroad tracks, we would taxi back if we're going to do another takeoff, but we're going to go to the hangar. That's where I stop and clean up the aircraft, take off the flaps, the carburetor heat, and the landing lights.
Okay.
And
So,
then
flaps off,
uh-huh.
carb heat in, fix lean for taxi,
Right. Good.
landing lights on. All right.
Exactly right. Yeah. A lot of people forget that. Lean for taxi.
fly one of those one day, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they had to pour concrete with rebar to support the Hawker that comes in and lands and parks there. It was so heavy, it was making an imprint in the
Wow.
blacktop. So did you feel that whenever you're coming in, you kind of relate to that slope light now, how a little bit of control you've got. You've got a little bit, but not a lot. You can't do any turning. You basically wings level.
Yeah.
Maybe a 1 or 2 degree bank angle, but not even 10, you know.
So it's the rudder at that very
Rudder,
end, yeah.
mostly, yeah.
All right, so
Mixture, mags, and master. Yep, magnetos. Mixture,
Mixture,
all the way
yeah.
up.
Mags,
Magnetos and the master.
master, right.